Hello, fellow history buffs! I'm going to be your resident Roman historian today, and we are going to map out the absolutely incredible evolution of our civilization. I mean, think about it. We went from a tiny, humble settlement right on the banks of the Tiber River to a vast, sprawling empire. And today, we're going to trace that entire journey through the lens of our greatest architectural triumphs. Consider this explainer your ultimate visual mind map to the glory of the Roman state.
So, here is our civilizational mind map for today. We'll start with the rise of Rome, move into the blueprint of an empire, and then look at our mastery of Roman engineering. After that, we'll explore the architecture of public spectacle, dive into the Pantheon's concrete marvel, and finally, wrap up with lessons from the Eternal City. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the rise of Rome.
To really appreciate the buildings we left behind, you kind of have to understand how we evolved politically. We actually started way back in 753 BC as a simple elective monarchy, but in 509 BC we overthrew the kings and established a constitutional republic. This was a completely defining era for us. Our relentless conquests, like the Punic Wars against Carthage, pushed our borders all across the Mediterranean, and that brought a massive influx of wealth back into Italy, which funded our earliest public works. But of course, political strife eventually caused the republic to collapse, giving way to the empire in 27 BC under Augustus. That shifted us into an autocratic state that would basically dominate the known world until the West eventually fell in 476 AD.
Moving right along to Section 2, Blueprint of an Empire.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how we developed our architectural philosophy. We didn't just invent everything from scratch. We took existing traditions, specifically the Greek, Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns, and we engineered them into a strict mathematical system of proportions. But we didn't stop there. We added the incredibly solid, simple Tuscan order at the base of the hierarchy, and we invented the super ornate composite order for our absolute grandest triumphal arches. The takeaway here? Every single column wasn't just there to hold up a roof. It was a visual tool. It communicated power, order, and our strict social hierarchy in literally every building we constructed.
All right, Section 3, Mastery of Roman Engineering.
450 kilometers. Just let that number sink in for a second. By the 3rd century, the city of Rome was supplied by 11 different aqueducts with a combined length of 450 kilometers. We were, quite literally, a civilization fueled by our complete mastery over water.
And let me tell you, these aqueducts completely transformed daily life in Rome. They relied entirely on gravity and these incredibly precise gradients to continuously flow water from distant mountain springs directly into the city center. We built massive, towering, arched bridges, like the Pont du Gard, just to carry water across deep valleys. But this wasn't just us showing off. This technology brought indoor plumbing to life. It supplied our massive public bathhouses, the thermae, which were basically the pulsing social heart of our empire. And, crucially, it flushed our waste directly into the Cloaca Maxima, our complex sewer system. We were engineering public health on a massive imperial scale.
Which perfectly sets up Section 4, Architecture of Public Spectacle.
Nothing says public spectacle quite like the mighty Colosseum, commissioned by the Flavian emperors in 70 AD. If you were to walk in and literally ascend the seating tiers, you'd see exactly how our architecture physically enforced our strict social class system. Right down at the arena's edge, on the podium, you had the emperor and the senators, safe and close to the action. Just above them sat the equestrian class, higher still were the ordinary citizens, and way at the very top, up on wooden bleachers, sat the women and the poorest spectators. We neatly organized up to 80,000 people by rank, all sharing the exact same grand, bloody spectacle.
But the real magic wasn't just in the stands. It was what was happening underneath, the hypogeum. Added by Emperor Domitian, this was a vast, 2-level, underground maze of tunnels hidden right beneath the arena sands. It was a logistical masterpiece. It featured 80 vertical shafts and huge moving platforms called hegmata. This underground machine allowed us to choreograph spectacular sudden appearances of gladiators and exotic wild beasts, turning the arena into a theater of absolute magic. And let's be honest, total terror.
Moving on to Section 5, the Pantheon's concrete marvel.
Okay, to truly wrap your head around the genius of the Pantheon, completed around 126 AD, you have to understand our greatest invention, opus commentitium, better known as Roman concrete. We figured out that if we mixed lime with a very specific volcanic ash called pozzolana and threw in some aggregate rubble, we got a super durable mortar. It could harden anywhere, literally, even underwater.
So the real game changer here is that this revolutionary, moldable plastic material completely liberated our architects from the rigid block-by-block constraints of traditional stone.
Think about the Greeks for a second. They relied on heavy cut stone. That meant they needed absolute forests of dense columns just to hold up flat, heavy roofs. Their focus was heavily on making the outside look beautiful. But Roman concrete, it was moldable. It allowed us to pour vast, sweeping vaults and massive domes right over wooden formwork. We completely shifted the architectural focus inward, creating these massive, functional, column-free interior volumes. We didn't just stack rocks to build walls. We literally engineered empty space itself.
And honestly, nowhere is this more mind-blowing than the Pantheon. We engineered a perfect internal sphere, exactly 43.3 meters wide and 43.3 meters tall. Now, how do you keep a 4,500 metric ton unreinforced concrete dome from just pancaking to the ground? We used a variable concrete mix. We packed incredibly heavy travertine stone at the base and then used super light pumice stone at the very top. We cast 28 recessed coffers into the ceiling to carve out unnecessary mass, and we supported the immense outward thrust with base walls that are an astonishing 6 meters thick. But here is my absolute favorite engineering trick, the oculus. How does leaving a massive 8.2 meter wide hole right at the very top of the roof actually stop the dome from collapsing? I mean, it sounds totally counterintuitive, right? Well, by leaving the heaviest, most critical central point entirely empty, we completely remove the structural load where it would have been the most dangerous. Plus, as an added bonus, it acts as this incredible celestial calendar, casting a sweeping spotlight of the heavens straight down into our grandest temple. It's just brilliant.
And finally, Section 6, Lessons from the Eternal City.
Let's zoom out for a minute. If you look at the map you use today, you are basically looking at our ancient borders. Our ancient provinces became the very origins of modern nations. Gaul is modern-day France, Hispania is Spain, Anatolia is Turkey, and Latium obviously is Italy. At our absolute peak, our empire spanned an unbelievable 5 million square kilometers. We laid down the physical, geographic, and cultural groundwork for the modern world as you know it.
Ultimately, our true legacy isn't just a bunch of beautiful, romantic ruins scattered for tourists across Europe. Our legacy is our organizational DNA. Think about the 50,000 miles of paved roads that connected our provinces and let our legions march. Think about our legal codes, our sprawling sanitation systems, and our Latin language. These practical, highly durable frameworks continue to structure the entire modern Western world today. It's absolutely true what they say. All roads really do lead to Rome.
Which brings me to a final, somewhat provocative thought that I want to leave you with today. If our Roman concrete, our gravity-defying aqueducts, and our legal frameworks built the absolute bedrock of the modern world, what structures being built in your society right now will actually still be standing to tell your story in 2,000 years? Think about the eternal, magnificent durability of Rome versus the disposable nature of so much modern construction. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.